Namibia is full of amazing people, whether local or visiting. Join us for the conversation, where we discuss these incredible projects, interesting topics, and what makes Namibia so special. Today, there's a wind blowing here in the studio, at Pro Studio, as part of the Gondwana conversation. But not to worry, we have an absolute global expert who've joined us here. And who told me that, Gys, we can use this wind blowing in the studio to the betterment of our country, to the development of our country, and to the betterment of our planet and our nation.
Absolutely.
Welcome to the conversation, Florian Schubert. We are grateful for you and for your time. Florian is an expert in wind energy and everything that goes with that. And he's here to share his knowledge, both global knowledge and technical knowledge, but especially the opportunity that we as Namibia have on this front, an opportunity that we need to grab. Florian, thank you for being here.
Thank you very much for having me.
Tell us, let's start at the beginning. Give us your story. What is your background, and especially your connection with Namibia?
Right. So my background, I'm German, born German. Live in France with my family, so just a little detail. I was born and raised in Germany as a kid of a middle-class family, raised in a street which was basically blue-collar street. After school, I went to college, to so-called University of Applied Sciences in Frankfurt, and made a diploma of mechanical engineering. So that's a little bit my background from education perspective. Right after my studies, the situation for engineers was very difficult in Germany. It was nearly impossible to get a job. So I decided to go to France to up a little bit my CV with the additional language, because English everybody speaks more or less. So I went to France and I stayed for 4 years in France. Worked for a large French car part manufacturer. I had the opportunity with the same company to go to Spain, and stayed another 3 years in Spain. Gave me the opportunity to learn Spanish. And it was a quite nice journey through Europe in these first years. Although the automotive sector never was really my passion. It was really just a job. It was an interesting job. I had the opportunity to learn French, to learn Spanish. But the product itself was never my passion. It was clutches for shift gear transmissions, and they just disappeared somewhere in the car. And the product, as I mentioned before, had never really my passion. It was just a product. In 1998, I decided to take a break, a sabbatical year. Went to southern France, went to sail for a year, total break, totally out of the business world. And during that time, I thought I need to do really something I like, really a business that is more than just a job, that is really passion. And I was always eyeing a little bit towards the wind industry. And then the decision was taken, I have to go towards wind. And there was a fair in somewhere mid of 1998 in Spain. So I went to see a couple of companies that were into the wind business. And I got to, at that time, to Enron. Name is maybe known for the biggest crash in the financial history of companies at that point of time. And Enron was starting a production for wind turbines in Spain in order to comply with local content regulations. And they said, we have a position for a project manager. Are you interested? And I said, for sure. And I had a discussion with the managing director. And the guy said, are you sure you can do that? And in my mind, I was like, oh, not at all. But I said, for sure I can do that. And at the end, obviously, it worked out. So And the fun fact, let's say, is I did it exactly 25 years ago. So that was my first assembly plant for wind turbines. And it's exactly the plan, what we want to do now in Namibia.
How did you end up from the journey and to finding your passion? I love how in your sabbatical here you went sailing. You need wind to sail.
Right. True.
so there was the first sign.
True.
But how did that journey bring you to our shores?
It didn't really bring me to the Namibian shores. I mean, the story about me being here is also a Namibian story. Mm-hmm. Because I remember very well, I was in our office and we got a call. And somebody said, hey, there's a call from the Namibian embassy in Berlin. And I thought it was a hoax. It was just somebody making fun of me. So I took the call. It was a lady, and she said, hello, my name is Lucia Radovanovic. I'm the commercial attaché from the Namibian embassy here in Berlin. And we would like to come and to meet you and to see your company. And I was like, okay, total surprise. Never any diplomatic persons called our company. So I said, yeah, for sure. When do you want to come? It was in September. And I thought it was for January. So how about January? And they said, how about next week? And I was, okay, yeah, for sure, you can come next week. So you're coming on your own? And she said, no, I'm coming with my assistant and I'm coming with the ambassador. And I said, wow, okay. Yeah, okay, let's do that. So, a week later, they all showed up. And I said, I really don't understand. I hear now for a couple of years about Namibia and green hydrogen. Why us? I think it's already, things are sorted out. You probably have large international corporations that do the job. So we are a small company. And they said, no, we know you're small, but we know you have a lot of experience, not only design of turbines, but also in the industrialization of turbines and setting up plants. And if you would come to Namibia, there's probably more in for Namibians than when large corporations come. You will probably share more with us than large corporations. And I thought, yeah, this is pretty true. So I said, okay, so that's great. I'm really interested to hear that. And Lucia said also, don't be afraid. Not everything is sorted out. There are still a lot of things to do. And there are not a lot of decisions that are taken already. I said, okay, so yeah, what do we do next? And Lucia said, you need to visit Namibia. And I said, yeah, I'm happy to do that. I never went there. So I said, yeah, when? And she said, how about next month? And I said, yeah, that's great. And she asked me, what do you want to do? And I say, yeah, I want to talk to universities, stakeholders, grid operators, anybody that I can imagine who have interaction afterwards with us. And she said, okay, I will organize that. And usually on these discovery trips, we get the first time into a country, it's more touristic than anything else. I got from the embassy then a schedule for that week, which started at 6 in the morning, went to 9 p.m., and it was totally filled with meetings and companies and all over the place. So I was totally surprised. So we went to Namibia.
When was that?
Oh, that was in October 2021.
Okay.
We then flew together to Namibia. She came with me. And the first impression of Namibia, getting out of the airport, driving from the airport towards Windhoek, I thought, wow, the road's really good. It was really my first impression. They have really good roads for Africa. I know a little bit of Africa. And so that was really my first impression. Today, when I take the same road from the airport towards Windhoek, I think it's really not a very good road. I'm looking forward that the highway is finished on the other side. So, so this is how I got from Germany to Namibia. It was not our idea. It's basically the idea of the Namibian embassy in Berlin.
And I think it's also a shout out to them, and it's a great compliment. You know, if people were wondering what the role of embassies are.
Yes.
And here you are today, and there's a lot more to tell in terms of what's already happened and what's possible coming, just because of their proactiveness.
Totally. No, this is absolutely true. I wouldn't be here today, 100%. I wouldn't be here today.
But let's get on to that. So that was October 2021. Tell us now, what are you doing here in Namibia at the moment?
Right.
And especially your dreams for the future.
Right. So what are we doing here in Namibia? The plan, let's first talk a little bit about the plan to get you an overview what the plan is. So the plan is, let's say the headline is to start a production of wind turbines here in Namibia. And we have created a company here in Namibia with 51% of the shares are Namibian. So that company belongs in the majority to Namibian or Namibian companies. And we want to start production of wind turbines as soon as possible. The personnel of that company should also be 100% Namibian. So not only just mechanics or mechatronics, the whole staff, including management, should be Namibian. This is the plan, and I'm 100% convinced that this is possible in Namibia. The idea is, as I mentioned before, to manufacture wind turbines here in Namibia. From my perspective, wind turbines should be produced in Namibia, shouldn't be imported. They should be produced in Namibia by Namibians, but also for Namibians. I see, as of today, there is a need for power in Namibia. There's a lot of solar, which is a very good thing, but sun is not shining during the night hours, so you need to compensate for that part. And this is, from my perspective, an ideal part for wind. There is enough wind in Namibia, obviously, but there is not only wind just in Lüderitz, where there's obviously a lot of wind, but there is wind all over the place. And we have a wind turbine technology that is called extra long blade. So we are not eyeing so much the rated capacity of the wind turbines, but we are eyeing the maximum amount of full load hours. The turbine should run most of the time full load, meaning producing as stable energy as possible. And this is exactly what we wanted to produce here in Namibia.
So from a layman's perspective, if I understand it correctly, so it's not about the strength of the wind necessarily.
Right.
You know, because you've mentioned Lüderitz. If you talk about strong wind, we always think of Lüderitz. You also talk about more base. So it's more through your technology. It is a technology that can create more consistent power generation instead of a high power generation.
This is correct. We do not need the highest wind speeds. And just to get a little bit back to where wind turbines are coming from. Wind turbines, the wind industry started pretty much in Germany like 25 years ago, at a point of time where the rated capacity of a wind turbine was like 30 kilowatts. So today it's less than 1% of an actual wind turbine. The idea was at that point of time to produce as many kilowatt hours as possible, because any kilowatt hour produced from a wind turbine was a good kilowatt hour. It was diluted in the endless grid anyways. The thing is, now in Germany we have over 30,000 wind turbines on the grid.
30,000.
Right. In a country with 80 million people, inhabitants, and just a third of the surface of Namibia. So when the wind is blowing now, the grid is overloaded with wind. They have to curtail, they have to cut out the turbines off the grid. So if you have to do that, why do you have a turbine then with a high rated capacity if you have to cut it out anyways? So this is where we started to think, hey, it makes no sense to have a lot of rated capacity. It makes more sense to have a ratio between a big rotor and a rather small generator in order to generate continuously. and not only when the highest wind is blowing. And so that technology was basically developed for the German grid. We are going to save structural cost in the turbine, because obviously a turbine that has less rated power, less kilowatt from the generator, needs less structural steel, etc. So we can save that. With our technology, we're not aiming the most amount of kilowatt hours.
Okay.
What we are aiming is the most amount of kilowatt hours with the highest
consistency.
With the highest consistency, exactly, with the highest stability of output. This is our idea. So this was the initial idea in Germany. That has an upside, because this means we don't need that high wind speeds. We can operate in lower wind speeds. And we are eyeing sites with lower wind speed but with consistent wind. The aim is to produce kilowatt hours as stable as possible and according to the need of the grid. We want to feed into the grid like a power station. So we are looking for sites, not with the highest wind speed, but with a wind profile that pretty much matches the consumption profile of the end consumer. And for example, here in Namibia, the grid consumption starts somewhere at 5 in the morning, ends somewhere at 10 in the evening. There's not a lot of consumption during nighttime. There's not a lot of industry. So basically, there's no consumption during nighttime. So what we are eyeing here in Namibia are sites that have wind between 5 in the morning, 10 in the evening, in a very stable manner, not only during the day, also during the week, during the month, during the year, in order to have the most stable output possible. And this is the philosophy behind our wind turbines.
I love the fact that we in Namibia, we have the opportunity to leapfrog technology,
Right.
through the good work that you do, through Windwise Namibia, to bring the newest and the modern technology to Namibia. Because countries like Germany have gone through the iterations and have learned the lessons. And just to put that in perspective, so Germany's got 30,000 wind turbines, and Namibia, I think Namibia's got 3.
I think it's pretty much correct, yes.
So the opportunity for us is endless. I mean, we are an importer of electricity, and we also know that the imported electricity is not a very clean, electricity. It's mostly coal-fired. So a beautiful opportunity, both from a financial and an environmental perspective.
Absolutely.
You said you want to set up production here in Namibia. Tell us about that. So where are you planning to do that, and give us some details about that?
Right. So we will start with a preliminary production in Stamperit. So we have a very good relationship with our partner Roots in Stamperit. The thing is, we're not only starting a production over there, we also want to start a training center over there. We need to train people. We need to train people in all aspects of the company. And we want to have these people to have a deep understanding of the technology. The managing director of the company should not be just a financial guy. He should understand totally what that technology is about. So we want to start up a training center. The training center basically consists of a wind turbine without the tower and without the blades, but a fully functional wind turbine just sitting inside a hall and with all the functionalities. And we want to train people on that turbine, not only to change parts, but also to see how the software works on these turbines. With 2 pieces of software that runs the turbine, one that runs the turbine and the other one that runs the converter, because the power, the electricity that is produced by the wind turbine has to match the grid. And it's not just feeding in from a generator. There is a so-called grid code that also exists in Namibia that clearly describes what that turbine, which is a sort of a generator, obviously, what the turbine needs to do in order to stabilize the grid. A wind turbine should never destabilize the grid. So there's a whole array of requirements. It's usually in Germany, it's a book that's thick like that. I'm a mechanical engineer. I can't give you any details about that. The thing is, it's complicated, and these are requirements that came up during the last 20 years, basically, all over the place, because there's obviously a need for a stable grid. And especially here in Namibia, where the grid is very much stretched out. And that brings me also to the Namibian grid, which is, incredible. This is when I came to Namibia and saw that even to remote locations, there's grid connection, stable and good grid connection. I haven't seen that in Africa so far. Namibians did an incredible job here. And that brings me also to other things that are here in Namibia. Obviously, the road system is great. You have cell phone communication all over the place. It's a safe place. For us, it's super because of the climate. Mm. When, know a little bit Western Africa, closer to the equator, it's very hot and humid and you're really suffering. That's obviously not the case here in Namibia.
The fact that you are eyeing Stampriet
right.
to set up this production site.
Right.
And for me as a Namibian and as a proud Gondwanian, and we are also very much, as Gondwana, a very rural Namibia. I love that. It gives me such a kick. If you look at Stampriet a decade or two ago, it was really a bit of a poverty trap,
right.
Small rural places like that, and where children growing up in poverty could probably only dream of
right.
having a little piece of land and a goat or sheep or something, which through droughts and through climate change most of them will die out every 3 years. But what you and your Namibian partners have done, and I tip my hat to you, and then all the other development, happening in a place like Stampriet through developments like Roots, is you allow children to dream on another level, because that child growing up in Stampriet, in the duster seas of Stampriet, can now dream of becoming a wind turbine engineer, right there on their front. So, and it starts with a dream. It starts with the aspiration and the inspiration. So, I think it's such a beautiful story that we, like we've said, we haven't started in Namibia with wind technology and wind energy, but the fact that we bring it here, and allow our children to dream and then to learn and to become experts, both Namibian and maybe even global experts in terms of this technology of the future.
Absolutely. You mentioned we haven't started yet, and this is exactly the point. This is why I'm here, because I know how to start and where to start. Setting up production of wind turbines is not nothing new to me. It's not nothing new to our company. It's something that we know pretty well. And it's, from my point of view, a very nice point to start. Because for everything that is planned in Namibia, green hydrogen, the first step that you have to do, you need power. And you need power 24/7. And you don't want to get it out of the grid. You cannot do everything with solar. So what's the obvious solution? This is wind. So we need to start a production of wind turbines. This is the very first step towards green hydrogen, but it's also a step towards power autonomy here in Namibia. The nice thing about wind turbines is it's a pretty complex product. There's a lot of things to learn, to discover, and we will start with that manufacturing plant, which is basically an assembly plant. So we assemble components. Most of the components will be imported towards Namibia. We will train people. People need to understand the turbine entirely. And the difficult part is not to assemble the wind turbine. It's not to put the turbine somewhere outside in the desert to connect it to the grid. This is not difficult. The difficult part is to keep it running. Because our customers, they expect so-called technical availability. That means the turbine needs to run between 96 to 98% of the time, needs to be running or able to run. And whatever happens between, we have to put the turbine back into operation as soon as possible. We all know when we drive our car and then the little yellow light comes up, the engine light, and then we hope then when we go to the repair shop that somebody really figures out quickly what the problem is. Just imagine the wind turbine is like 100 times more complex. But we have not a week or so to repair it. it needs to be repaired within hours. So in order to do so, we need to send a team there. And that team needs to understand the whole thing, all the sensors, all the cables, everything. Somewhere there's a fault. And they need to figure it out. Very often it's just a sensor, a small part, somewhere in that structure that has a total height of 200 meters. You need to figure out where it is, and you need to figure it out quickly.
So wind has the opportunity to create sophisticated, high-level, sustainable jobs.
Right.
And if I understand you correctly, probably more jobs than something like... And solar is fantastic, and we have a lot of it.
True.
But, I mean, once a plant is up, but probably the permanent jobs are less. It seems that wind technology can create more jobs for Namibians.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the manufacturing of solar panels is totally Chinese. China invested billions of dollars into the manufacturing of solar panels. They won't be manufactured in the future in Europe or wherever. This will be always Chinese, and the quality is good now. What we propose in our company, we have jobs. We need mechanics, mechatronics, electronics. We need people that understand IT. We have a whole array of disciplines that all work together in that company. And the goal is, as I mentioned, we will start with the assembly of components. Once we get to a certain volume, we'll start to ask our suppliers to come to Namibia and to start to produce also in Namibia. So at the long term, we're not talking about 1 or 2 assembly plants in Namibia. We're talking about the industry. We're talking about a whole array of manufacturing plants of different things, towers, electronic equipment, converters, at the end, maybe even a blade manufacturing plant. All that stuff can be produced in Namibia. There's absolutely no doubt about it. And this is the final goal. This is a little bit towards my dream, but I don't think it's a dream because I've seen it already. And this is absolutely something that should happen here in Namibia. And this will create not only a couple of hundred jobs, this will create thousands of jobs in engineering, in manufacturing, all over the place. And what you said before, you said Europe learned its lessons. I disagree. Europe didn't learn its lessons because the grid code didn't change yet. The grid code is still oriented like 25 years ago to maximum amount of produced kilowatt hours, not to the most stable amount of kilowatt hours. So I don't think that Europe really learned its lessons. And this is something where I think Namibia can really show the world what is possible with renewable energy by producing green baseload with renewable energy.
Let me. So everything that you say is so inspirational. In terms of jobs, and I think our philosophy at Gondwana is, first and foremost is jobs. Every right. Additional job in this country is worth its weight in gold, in terms of the impact that it has on families and even communities. But obviously also not at all costs. We are sensitive about our environment.
Sure.
And I wanna pick your brain and maybe even play a bit devil's advocate in terms of a couple of things that you said now. So you talk about 24-hour power. So
right.
For a layman like me, there's solar, there's wind, and there's probably combinations of other green energies, probably like batteries or whatever.
Right.
How do we address that going forward? Because we can't guarantee that the wind will blow 24 hours a day, 365 days a year.
Right. No, this is totally true, and the answer is in a smart combination of everything.
Okay.
At the end, what counts is the price per kilowatt hour to the end consumer. This is what counts, and this should be the goal in Namibia. So it will be a combination of everything with the final goal to have the cheapest kilowatt hour possible. So we need to supply to the end customer constant power, but we need to produce these kilowatt hours as cheap as possible. And that brings me also to the question that you asked before about the most windy sites. Another factor that counts into the production of green energy is grid connection. So projects should not be just developed where the most wind is. They should be also developed where the grid already is, because grid connection is also a high cost, which at the end ends up at the final customer that has to pay for it. So we are looking not for sites that are too remote, we're looking sites that are close to the grid. And the discussion that we want to have here in Namibia is, where is the weakest grid? How can we help the grid? This is the goal. And this is a discussion that hasn't taken place yet in Europe, but it will come.
Florian, tell me from an environmental perspective, what are the things that look again at Gondwana? We understand that no development happens without impact.
Right.
There will always be an impact, and that's something, especially given our socioeconomic realities in terms of unemployment. That to me and as Gondwana, that is the focus point: is to create more sustainable jobs. But again, in a sensitive and in a responsible manner. So obviously there is an impact in terms of wind turbines, both in terms of footprint and then maybe, and again, I'm a layman, in terms of bird strikes. And talk us about that and how do we mitigate those impacts?
Right. I mean, obviously, before setting up a wind farm, you need to do an environmental impact study. So there are studies beforehand, and there are areas that are forbidden for wind turbines. Just think about Walfish Bay, the flamingo colonies. They stretch also inland. So you should obviously not put wind turbines up there. There are sometimes birds in areas where you don't expect them or where you don't see them, still they are there. So you should stay out of that area. But there is still a lot of space left here in Namibia. So there are a lot of possibilities to set up wind turbines, and there are also today possibilities to avoid bird strikes. In Germany, where everything is obviously far more close together, and the protected areas, there are not a lot of protected areas left in Germany because everything is somehow touched by man. But there are now systems that detect birds and shut down wind turbines when birds approach. So there are a couple of possibilities, but I think here in Namibia, we just should stay out of protected areas, area with birds, should just go somewhere else. There are enough opportunities and possibilities in Namibia.
It is a fascinating possibility, and it's not the future, it's already happening. You are here. Your company is already here in Namibia. Give us some timelines in terms of what you are planning in the near future for your dreams at Stamperit.
Right. It all depends now a little bit on our first building permit, or let's say on the paperwork for our first wind farm. Let's say in the ideal world, if I can push my wish button,
Yes.
We could install the first wind farm here in Namibia next year. So this is obviously, I'm not the guy who's doing the project development. We do that with our partner company, GBA, Green Baseload Africa. So there's also the Green Baseload in the name. They are driving that. So I'm just the manufacturing part, let's say. But the plan is, or if I stay on the wish button, the idea is to bring 10 turbines next year to Namibia, use one for the training center. So that would be ideally in the first half of 2025, in order to train the first 5 Namibians that we hired 2 weeks ago. And to have then the first wind farm up next year, start the first provisional manufacturing also in order to train people in 2026. And then it depends a little bit on the market and on the offtake. But to set up a manufacturing assembly facility for wind turbines, it's about 6 months between groundbreaking to being ready to manufacture. So that could be done pretty quickly. And I hope that we have a full-size manufacturing site here in Namibia somewhere in 2027. This is my This is my dream. I do it for 25 years. It's not a job for me. It's really a vocation. I really love what I do. When you stand on top of a wind turbine over 100 meter high and you have that beautiful view in the countryside, it's something nobody is untouched by that. Everybody that steps out of the wind turbine is always impressed by the size, by the view, by everything. And yes, the plan is to give Namibia a future, industrial future. The industrialization of Namibia has to start at a certain point of time, somewhere. And this is, I think, what we can provide. We can put that starting point. And from that starting point, it can really grow in any direction. And this is what we can do, and this is hopefully what we can do. This is what we did so far. And for me, the moment when we roll out the first made in Namibia wind turbine into the desert and install it, and everybody will sign on the door, everybody from the cleaning woman to the CEO. This is a moment, I had it already in other countries. This is an absolutely incredible moment, and I want to live it here in Namibia.
I share your dream and I support your dream.
Thanks.
And hopefully, we at Gondwana can be part of that dream going forward in terms of just being a Namibian citizen. Florian, thank you so much. I think thank you for your wish button. Thank you for dreaming. Thank you for including us, and I think thank you for opening our eyes in terms of what's possible. In terms of our country. I love when you said that the true answer is a combination of technologies.
Right.
And it's a bit of a philosophy for life as well. It's not only the one or only the other one. The answer is usually always a balance. It's always a combination of different factors working together. And I think that provides such a beautiful opportunity for us as Namibians in terms of both creating jobs and world expertise in terms of skills.
Right.
But also a future. A green future, a sustainable future.
It brings me to you guys from Gondwana. You have your lodges, called lodges, but for me, it's not a lodge. My image of a lodge is of something very simple. You operate sophisticated hotels somewhere in the middle of nowhere with all the luxury you can imagine, run by Namibians. You need really well-trained, sophisticated people that are able to bring that thing to life, to keep it running and to satisfy the needs of super demanding international customers. And you do that. And this is the same thing that we want to do on the industrial sector. We want to provide jobs for engineers. We want to provide jobs for final Namibian CEO of that operation. That whole operation should be filled with interesting, sophisticated jobs. What you do in the hospitality sector is what we want to do in the industrial sector. This is absolutely our plan. So it's not about jobs. When we talk about jobs, we should be more specific about what jobs we're talking here in Namibia. And the jobs we are talking about is the whole array of jobs.
Thank you for that, and well done to you and your partners at Windwise. We will be following your story closely, and let's harvest the wind that's blowing in the studio.
Thanks very much. So thanks again for having me here.